That's it, right? Now let's do, what else do you do with the product? You sell it. That's another method you should have, selling a product. Okay, help me. This method sells a product, one, only in one quantity, right? A unit of a product. So you can say 1 unit if you like, because see, it doesn't take any param. It's not taking any parameter from you. So if I call sell product, the question should be how many? So this is only selling 1. And it will throw an exception if there is no product in stock. Of course, it should throw an exception. Like, how can I sell if there is nothing in my stock? So what should I check? What should throw an exception? Quantity should be greater than 0. Right? Your quantity should be greater than 0, only then can you sell. So let's write the negative, because negative kind of throws it and then you don't have to bother to write else or whatever. Okay, so if the quantity, now again, you can say get quantity if you like, you can say quantity. Where the get is, I'm not so particular because it's just getting the value, but setting, definitely I'm not doing anything at all. And if I need it more than once, I'll put it in a local variable. So if the quantity is greater, oh, sorry, we'll go the opposite. If it is less than or equal to 0, I'm going to throw an exception, right? And how do you throw an exception? Throw new my exception. So notice how I'm trying, it's easy to create your own exception class because I'm just giving it a message. You could have said throw exception and given it a message. There is such a exception class which takes a message, but that kind of becomes so broad. So this is just to show you that you can create your own custom exception classes if you like. You could have simply said throw exception and it was okay. But as I said, just one step that we know how to create our own exception classes. Okay, so throw the new exception. What would you like to say? Okay, the product is out of stock. Cannot sell. Right, something like this. Cannot be sold. Will make more sense. We never use passive or whatever. What doesn't it like now? Oh, semicolon. Else. So what should you do? If it is not in stock, that's fine. It's not in stock, can do nothing about it, right? But if it is in stock, what do you have to do? How do you sell a product? Remove 1 from quantity. So set the quantity again and remove 1 from it. Okay, so that's all you do. Now something I'll bring to your notice. So get the quantity and remove 1 from it because you're only selling 1. Now notice how I've used a get quantity here and I've also used a get quantity here. I've used it twice. I've said it is an overkill. You can use quantity if you like. But if you are going to use the get methods and you're going to use it a number of times, remember this will be, you'll say if this happens, then it will never come here. That's okay. It will never come here. But if this does not happen, it will come here and it again calls the get quantity. So if you like, you can do this. If you like, what is get quantity returning you? An int, right? You can put it in a local variable quantity. Now, I don't want to confuse you. I don't want to use the same instance variable names and you think, oh, that's the same name. She's using the same variable. I kind of go at quantity in hand or something. There's a long one and I'll get the quantity. What will that save me? So at the price of a local variable, I'm kind of using it. What have I said? Quantity spelling is wrong. So now you can use this variable here and here. Is it making sense? So since the method was called twice, and method calls are expensive, keep in mind, but it's in the same class definition. So again, this is a personal preference. So I've given you that idea definitely in your assignments. If really it was, you were kind of using it when you were giving a 10% increase, you were saying get salary again, add 0.1% to it. You could have avoided it. You would have just said get salary multiply by 1.10. Math can be only done once. Or if you wanted to really get it, put it in a local variable, get it, and then use it. So whatever you like, I leave it to you. It's not as if it's very important, but logically, if you think about it, we are consuming time, right? So here it is. So the downside is I had to create a local variable. Some people just don't like it. They said as more variables you use, more errors you can make. So I leave it to your personal preference, right? So I got the quantity and then I used it. Or you could have said, why even going to all this headache? Why don't you just use the quantity instance variable? That's the third option. So for me, getting is not that important, but setting is definitely required. So I never do math myself with quantities. I never do it. Even though I know I've already checked that there is more than 0 in quantity. I've already checked it. If it is less than or equal to 0, I give it away. I say, yep, okay, it can be done. I throw an exception. But still, I don't say quantity goes to quantity minus 1. I don't do it. And I don't want you to do it in set methods. Always defensive programming. I cannot go wrong. I know I cannot go wrong. But you see, I'm still not taking that risk of going wrong. So always use set methods whenever you have to change a particular instance variable. So again, you can put a note for yourself. Always use set method whenever you need to change an instance variable. A variable. There it is. Make it a point. Don't go wrong with this. Okay. Now, make sense? That's how you sell a product. That's all you do. Now let's look at the next one. I want to sell some products, some units. That unit should be, of course, greater than 0. You can't sell negative units. You can't sell negative units. So I'm going to do a little math again, but I mean, the math will be different. But since it is the same concept, I'll take it from here and we'll put it here and then we'll change it. Okay, now I want to sell some units, the number of units of a product to be sold. You can say units, you can say items, doesn't matter. If not enough, okay, now what are the 2 checks you have to make? You have to make 2 checks here. One, amount should be greater than 0. You can't sell negative number of elements. How can you say sell minus 5 of the product? So amount has to be greater than 0. What else? What is your second check? Enough in stock?
Should be greater than 1 because we are selling more than 1.
As long as this, I mean, the user can use either button. As long as it is greater than 0, we have. I mean, the user is not forced to use the other button. You can still use this, give a quantity of 1, and it should still work. Because nobody knows that, you know what I mean? Like, he'll say, I'm not lazy, I'll use this one and the same one. So it's not wrong, right? It's just that we've given him an extra method to be lazy. But we can't say, oh, that's wrong here. It's not wrong. He could say, sell 1 product. So 1 and anything greater than 0 is allowed. So amount has to be greater than 0. So that's our first check. So let's do it. So let's do our first check. And we'll do it in sequence because if amount is less than or equal to 0, okay, we'll have to throw. There are 2 my exception. It's throwing exception in 2 cases. If not enough stock or if amount is 0. So write both of them. If amount is less than or equal to 0 or not enough in stock. As soon as it sees any relational operators or whatever, it changes color because it thinks that it has to, it's programming. But anyway, you don't bother about it. As long as you are in comments, we are okay. Okay, but that's why it is doing it. Okay, so if the amount is less than or equal to 0, then we have to throw a new exception. Let's throw it. And what would be the message? The number of units or the amount, whatever you like, to be sold should be greater than 0. In this simple example, I could have used just the exception class because exception class, you can pass messages to it and you can show those messages. My aim was to kind of give you a small introduction to exceptions and a small handling. You know how to handle them. Okay, so there it is. Okay, that's one job done. What is the other problem? Not other problem, other check. So if amount is less than or equal to 0, the number of units to be sold should be greater than 0 is missing. Okay, one job done. What is the other job? The other job is there is enough in stock. Now, how will you check if there is enough in stock? The value of the quantity must be greater than or equal to amount. Not 0 this time, amount, because you want to sell amount number of units. So you won't check if it is greater than 0. Maybe it is 5, but I want to sell 10. So you have to check that what's in stock is more than what you're trying to sell. or equal. Again, because I've laid no restriction that it can be 0. And I'm not doing any reordering. All that work is extra. But in its simplest form, if, oh, so we already have it here. So get it? So get it? If it is less than or not equal, if it is less than amount. That's how many, so it's less. So how can you sell? The product is not out of stock. The product, there is not. Here, we'll kind of say something like this. There is not enough of the product in stock, cannot be sold. So instead of comma, you should say something like hence cannot be sold, because comma seems like it's grammatically not giving the idea. So you can take that. And again, as I said, your messages have to be really complete and correct. So instead of comma, we'll go hence cannot be sold. Make sense? So the quantity in stock, and I wanted to done a get. So the quantity in stock has to be, if it is less than amount, equality is okay. It will become 0. That's fine. But if not, we'll say we cannot sell enough. There's not enough of it. We cannot sell it, right? And what should I do here? What should I subtract from it? Amount. Instead of subtracting 1, now subtract amount. Sold. Change the quantity. It has been sold. It's out of your stock. It's gone out of your inventory. Right? I've sold my product. So I was able to stock it, restock it. And again, if you don't like the word amount, you can always do a refactor, change all your amounts to units or something like that. Whatever, if it works, if that makes more sense. Anything else that you do with the product? With what I have, like, of course, you would like to reorder it, but I don't have a reorder variable. But you'll say, oh, reorder, that was my ad stock in a sense. I mean, I just add it. But it may happen that every time you sell, the quantity has gone down below a certain limit and you want to reorder. But you've now taken care of it. So I don't want anything to do with that. So with what, anything else that you do with the product? You stock it, you sell it. You stock it, you sell it. You could change its price, you could change its name. You've taken care of setters and getters. I can't think of anything else. So our product class is kind of complete. What I've added to the product class, though you may not understand its meaning right now, but remember how I said that every product ID has to be unique. I cannot add a product that has the same ID as a product in stock, and that makes sense. You can't have two products that are called, that have the same ID but are different products. That cannot happen. So anytime you add a product to a stock, you have to recognize it by its unique identifying ID field. Something like a primary key in your tables. You have to have it. So to kind of take care of that, I'm going to write an equals method here. Now equals method is already a method in the object class, right? Bless you. It is already a method in the object class. What does it do? Equals in the object class simply checks if two objects are placed at the same memory address. That's what it does. What equal method do you want to write? When are two products equal in your case? When are two products equal in your case? If they have the same ID. That's the equal methods I will write, right? So why did I give it the name equals? Why didn't I give it something else? Just because if there is a method equals that exists and I want to give it a new definition, I would like to do that. Why do I call the toString method toString? Why don't I say display information or return information? For the same reason. Because toString, everybody who codes in Java knows that there is a toString in the object class, and its use is to give a string representation of your object. So if there is a method that is available with your parent, why go and buy a new one? You know what I mean? Use it. So if you like your dad's car and he's fine to give it to you, why would you buy a new one? Maybe you'll buy it and paint it red. You know what I mean? You could change it. So that's the same idea. So if the parent class has a method whose name makes sense and does the same kind of job, just override it. So what I'm doing, I'm overriding it. So how do I do it? I kind of write override here, not inside the Java doc comments, please. Outside the Java doc comments with a capital O. If you write it with a small o, it's not the purpose. You have to be careful with these annotations. at the A's. And what does it do? This method overrides the equals method of the object class. And okay, so it's kind of just out of proportion, but that's okay. It compares the current object with the object passed as a parameter, and it will return. So it will return. There is an at return. So how it has to be called? It has to be called with object 1 dot equals object 2. So you're trying to compare is object 1 equal to object. Right? That's how it will be called. So it takes a parameter, like string compare. How do you compare two strings? You say string 1, right? Or equals method. What do? You say equals. And what do? You pass the string to in as the second parameter. That's what you do. So this is how it will be called. If I want to call this method, one product P1, one product is trying to find out if it is equal to another product P2. Right? So that's what it says. That's what the comment says. Compares the current object. Which current object? With whatever you are calling P1. Whether it is equal to the parameter being passed P2. So if I want to compare, and you say, why will you compare? I need it. I'm only going to store products with unique ID. So this equals method, my equals method is going to return true if the products have the same ID. Else it will return false. Does it make sense? So it will return true if the two products are equal. And for us, equality is comparing their ID. So before I add an object to my stock, I will call this method. And I'll say, oh, is there something with the same ID? I can't add it. So this will help me, right? And it will otherwise return false. And what is it taking? A param of what type? OBJ. You'll say, why don't you call it product here? Because this belongs to the product class. And it will, of course, you're trying to compare a product with a product. So why don't you do this? I can do this because I've said I will override it. And overrides parameter here is object. It's of type object. You can't change the signatures. So though product is a class definition and an object, I mean, it is an object, but we still can't change the definition. So what will I do? I'll cast it into a product and use it. You say, oh, that's more work. Why don't I just call it equals product? Sure, you can do that. But as long as you're saying I am overriding it, you have to use the same signature. See, bring your mouse over it. It will tell you. It says method does not override or implement a method from a super type. It says, oh, that's not override. And if I remove this, if I comment it, I'm fine. No, I'm not overriding it. So what is the advantage? Learning it and doing it the right way is the advantage, right? Because there is an equals method, let me just override it. So you don't try to change stuff, you just try to work with it. Oops. Everything okay, Amanda? Yep. Okay. See you again. So we'll keep the signatures the same. I know I'm comparing two products, so I'll cast it myself. Okay. Now, how do I do it is the biggest thing. So I don't want to return false always. I have to return, it depends upon what I want to do. So what are you going to compare? You're going to get the ID of the current object. You're going to get the ID of the object being passed. If they are equal, they're strings. If they are equal, we will return a true, else we will return a false. I'm not sure if this has, give me 1 minute. I'm not sure if, oh, but I think I took the same one, didn't I? Did you get this on your, the one from Blackboard? Did you have this extra empty method? Okay, so we are fine. I wasn't sure. If not, then just copy this. I forget if I had it or I picked up a new one. Okay, so now let's compare. What are we comparing? ID of the current object, this dot ID, and the objects dot ID. Okay, so how will you write it? We'll say if. Right? So what do you want to compare? You want to compare the this, get its ID. Remember, it's a string, right? So we will have to use equals ignore case because it's a string and we want to, okay, with what do you want to compare? You want to compare it with obj's dot get ID, but obj is an object. So before you use it, what will I do? I will cast it. So take a local variable and cast your, let's call it T, right? And then cast your object to a That's how you do casting in Java. Cast it. You have to, because obj is just any object. So if you want to give a note, cast obj to a product object. Remember, a product is a object. Parents. Inheritance always is a relationship. This is called an is a relationship. Different from has a relationship. Remember, you saw has a relationship in card and deck of cards. Deck of cards has a card, but here product is an object. So therefore you can cast it. It's safe to cast because product is an object. So you take the object that is coming to you, and it can only come as an object data type because that's what are the signatures. You cast it into a product and keep it in P, and now compare it with P.getID. They have to be of the same nature. Only then it makes. So if that's the case, then what do you want to return? True. Yep, they're equal. You again don't need an else with return statements because return says go back. So you don't need an else. You could write it, but you don't need it. See the sense? Like throw just kind of stops there and returns. Similarly, a return statement does return. It says I'm stopping here. That's the use of return statement. So you can have more than 2 return statements in code. You just saw I have 2, but remember they're not acting together. They're mutually exclusive. Either return will happen with true, and if that doesn't happen, then false will be returned. 2 things cannot be returned from a method. But for me, only 1 will be returned. So I say return a true. So basically you are, or if you don't even like this, you know what, we can even do this. We can remove the is. We can just take this statement if you want to do it. Like I can write it as one single statement. For your information, you can simply say return, and you can take this thing. This will result in either a true or a false. This will return in true or a false. You can even write it this as a statement. Like you can just write this. Nothing stops you. You don't even have to create, like you don't even have to do an if. This will return true or false. So you may, okay, let me do this so that maybe if you ever need it, you have it. Okay, so this is one way of writing it. I hope everybody understands that. Or this is another way of writing it that automatically will return a true or a false. Here, I don't even have to write an if. You're saying if the ID is equals to this, it will automatically return a true, else it will return. You can write one single statement. But this single statement is equivalent to what I've commented. It's exactly equivalent. There's nothing wrong in it. And some students, like for clarity, they want to put round brackets around this. You don't have to. You don't have to. It's just a return statement. But if you kind of makes it easy for you, you can put this extra ones. Don't keep putting extra ones just because you want it to be clear. Don't make it unclear for others who are reading it. Don't make it complicated. So I can do this. It will compare. And what does this equals ignore case is a method that returns a true or a false. It already returns a Boolean value. So automatically, if it is a true, return true. If it is a false, return false. So you don't have to write your if statement. Compact code, that's it. Nothing else. It's just compact. Right? So that's your equals. So the equals method has been overridden, and you have written that code that you want the equality to be checked on. If you wanted to compare names, I would have done names. But ID was, names may not be unique, but ID will now be unique. Because I said IDs are unique. I wanted this method. Names usually may not be unique. You could just be calling it keyboard. Everything, like every keyboard is a keyboard. But of course, then they are from different manufacturers or different number of, of course they're different. You know, not every keyboard is the same and they're priced different. But I wanted to show you the equals method, and the only thing I thought was I'll make ID unique and name I'll say can be duplicate. May not be duplicate, but can be. Right? Like names of persons can be duplicates, but their ID can never be duplicate. Same kind of concept. Maybe they call their keyboards keyboard, whatever keyboard, I don't know. Like I've never bought so many keyboards in my life, so I don't know. But I'm sure they call it keyboard, Microsoft keyboard, whatever, or something different. Who knows? You can go and check Staples website or something. But so these are not necessary. Just in case you think, oh, how is it working? It's just, oops, what did I do? How many do I need? One? No, one. And another one maybe, and a semicolon. No, I have one extra. That's what happens when you. Okay, there it is. No extra brackets, please, right? That's what I said. It makes it more confusing than anything else. There it is. My product class is complete. So this method was not like you could not necessarily think of it. Oh, it is a method of the product, but for me, I want to check if two products are equal, and that equality is being checked by ID. So I overrode. This is called overriding the equals method in the object class to suit my needs. So you decide what do you want. String has overridden it. If you notice, how can I use the equals method in the string class? Because it has overridden the equals method of the object class. And how does it say something is equal? It checks one text at a time, one character at a time. Everything has to match, case dependent. And if it finds it, it says, oh, equals is true. So it has been overridden. Somebody overrode it in the strings class. Maybe if I can do this, I don't know, I'm not very sure, but if I do this, MNOPQRS, oh, there it is. Maybe they mention it in their equals method. Equals EFGH. Oh, EFGH equals. See, notice. Do you notice its do you notice its signatures? It didn't write string is coming as an object. It says object is coming as an object. This is the overridden method of the object class. That's what it has done. It has overridden it. Somewhere does it say, oh, there it is. There it says overrides equals. So string class has overridden it. How does it compare two strings are equal? When I use the equals method, what does it compare? The contents of the string, not the addresses of the string. If it had not overridden it, then it was going to compare the addresses of the strings. That's not what we want. Whereas equals ignore case, it should have come here, right? Itself after equals, right? Equals ignore case is not coming in sequence. C is coming afterwards. Okay, that's strange how it has been placed, but can't do much about it. So let's look at equals ignore case, EEE. Now there is no method called equals ignore case in object. We know that. EFGH. There it is. See, there is no overriding here. And it makes sense. There is no method called equals ignore case. But the string class does override the equals method. And therefore, like the toString method, we also will have equals methods in classes that we need. Same concept. Same concept. ToString is usually present in every class because we will always return the information of the object. Like usually, right? So why should we not just call it ToString? And similarly, they will have equals method if there is a need for it. Why will I call it something like equals product? You know what I mean? Same concept. So there it is. Okay, so the string equals has overridden the equals of the object class, and you have overridden it yourself right now. You just overrode it yourself. And I know this could be a little overwhelming, but see, all I've done is I've picked up the ID of the current object, picked up the ID of the object that is being passed to me, compared their IDs, and if the IDs are equal, I return true. If they're unequal, I return false. That's all I'm doing. And I'm doing an equals ignore case because IDs are not case sensitive. If you said no, IDs are case sensitive, then we will use the equals method. It doesn't make sense to me that IDs are case sensitive. But it's up to you whether we use equals or whether we use equals ignore case. I have said equals ignore case. Make sense? Product class is complete. Now with this class, I can create an object, I can add it to stock, I can find out if it was added and do everything like that in my tester, right? Now, if you wanted to do it in your tester, what will you do? So let's save this. And I don't see any red squigglies, so we are okay. Open up your object. Open up your tester. Right? Now let's see if things are working. So I will create a product properly, like the quantity is 1, the price is 100.50. And now you have to check every method. Is set working? Are gets working? Is add stock working? Is sell working? Everything has to be done by this. That's what a tester is. So one way is if we don't have time, like quickly we want to do something, we can always do it through BlueJ. Or, of course, if you're expected to write it in an assignment, then you'll have to do this. Or the third way is, of course, the better way in which you will learn eventually after the reading page, is use unit testing. Every method that you write in the class has a corresponding test method in a test class. It's called a JUnit testing class. So you kind of build it, there is a certain format to it. So you test, you write methods, and these assert equals or assert method, there are methods that are already defined in the unit, in the JUnit testing suite, we can call it, right? And you pick up those methods and you check every method of the class that you're trying to test. So you don't like code it yourself, but you still code methods that are predefined and put code inside it to test. So that's the third way of testing. So one easiest is BlueJ, which of course is not the ideal way because not everybody has BlueJ. You know what I mean? Like organizations don't even believe in BlueJ. 2, you write a tester like I'm going to do right now. And 3, we do unit G test, which is of course the right way of testing. But this is not wrong, it's just more work. But you have to know it. If you're writing applications, you have to know it. Okay, so I'll kind of comment this out. And I was, see, this will not cause problems. 2.0 by 0 doesn't cause problems. Very strange. I'll kind of read about it. I've always thought, why does it happen? It will give you an infinity. But I've never gone and read about it. I know that real numbers you can do division by 0, and it gives you an answer of infinity. Now, why did whoever made Java programming language, why did they make it behave differently for floating numbers and for real numbers? I have no idea. Why would they do it? But anyway, it's always kind of bugged me. And Yana was asking me, and I said, you know what? I don't know, like that's how it is. But I've never gone and kind of found out why did they do it. Anyway, I'll kind of comment this out. So we know that the product is available. Now what do we want to do? Now you start testing your methods. Let's do the simple ones first. I want to add to the stock. Okay, so what do you want to do? P1 is ready. If P1 had problems, definitely it will go on to one of the catches and nothing will happen. So notice how I'm putting all my testing now in the try block, because I only want to do it if the product got created. If there was a problem with product creation, why would I like to do all this stuff? It makes no sense, right? So therefore, everything now goes in the try block. And then any kind of exception will be caught. Okay, so let's do this. Let's add to stock. Remember, there was an add stock method. So you can check it with positive values, with negative values to see you have an exception and whatever you like. So can I add, even I think 0 wasn't allowed, right? I don't think 0 was allowed. Oops. Here, you should get an exception. Why? Because I cannot add 0. And how do you call it? Hopefully, again, 90% of class is doing well in the sense that you know how to call methods, but still not 90, maybe 80. There are still students who don't know how to call a method. Keep in mind, name of the object dot name of the method. Returns something, you have to assign it. Was add stock returning anything? The return type was void. So this makes no sense. This makes no sense. I take an integer variable and assign it. It says, what are you trying to do? This method is not returning anything. How are you assigning it to something? Doesn't make sense at all. So don't make that mistake. On the other hand, if a method does return something, please assign it to a variable, because otherwise it is lost. It won't complain then. It should. Java should say, oh, it is returning something and you haven't assigned it, but it doesn't. It doesn't give you an execution error. It just ignores it. So it does one way and it doesn't the other. But again, I don't have an answer. Why does it do it? So let's try this. So the product will get created, but I don't think I can add to stock if my method was saying greater than 0. Number of units to be added should be greater than 0. Right? So makes sense. Add stock is working. Negative value should also not work. Of course, should not work. Same problem. Right? Now what do I do? I kind of change it to, let's add 10 to the stock. I can only add an integer. Would you like to try? Oh, here, let me show you what happens here. See, oh, now NetBeans is very smart already. It kind of tells you the error, but when you, okay, it will. But if I was doing this in BlueJ, unless I compile it, it won't complain that you can't pass 10.5 to it because it's requiring an integer. So you see, these IDs are helpful. Though on the other hand, they don't say, oh, you're not thinking, but that's an error. I can't add 10.5, bring your mouse over it, it will say incompatible types. Now, BlueJ would never say that. It will not give you any red squigglies. When you run the program, when you compile it, it will say, oops, you didn't do the right thing. So can't do much about it. So here I can only go this way. So now when I add 10 to the stock, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of repeat this statement. That's not what I want to do, but that's the easiest way right now. What should you see? A change in the quantity, right? So run it. I've added to the stock. It was 1 before, it becomes 11 now. Make sense? So add stock is working. 0 wasn't allowed, negative values were not allowed, positive are allowed. There is no upper limit. I can add 1000 if I like. Add stock is working. Okay, after you add, what do you want to do? Sell it. Sorry, anything? Any question? Are we okay? So, I mean, I'm in the same program showing you that what will work and what will not work. Okay, and then now try to sell it. Let's try to sell the product 1. I have an option of using this method and it will only sell 1 product. Or I have the option of using the other one in which I can give a 1 if I like. No, nothing stops me from giving a 1. Right, so let's try this one. And how will I try it? I'll again do a system out. How many left in stock? 10. Right? 10. So 1, 11, 10. 1, 11, 10. Cell is working. Right? If cell is working, it's only 43. Okay, if cell is working, let's try. Can I sell 0 products? I don't think we allowed 0. Did we allow 0? I can't remember if you could sell 0. No, it was, I think, greater than 0. If I try this, it should give me an error. The number of units to be sold should be greater than 0. Make sense? Yes. Okay, so let's sell 1 more again. Can I do this? Yes. I should be like, I can sell 1 either by this or by this. Both should work. So let's try it again. Of course, I should have used a helper method instead of copying and pasting system.out, but I mean, it's not as if it is wrong, but anyway. There. So I started with 1, I added 10, I sold 1, I sold another 1. Can I sell 10 of my product 1? I only have 9 left. Can I sell 10 of my product 1? No, it should give an error. We've already checked 0 and minus are not working. Can I sell 10? Now I am doing it in the same program. Of course, if you had to do it, you would write more than 1 cell statements. Oh, this works, this doesn't work, and so on. Like I'm just replacing it. Can I sell 10? No. Why? Because I'm only left with 9. There is not enough of the product in stock, hence cannot be sold. It wasn't sold because what do I have? If you do a print again, you will still be left with 9. They were not sold. How will you prove they were not sold? It should show you this. Oh, I can't prove it to you because once it throws an exception, it stops, right? It won't come to this statement because an exception occurred here. So it will never show the next printing statement. So I can prove it to you, but it didn't sell it because they are still like, it gave me an exception. Okay, can you sell 9? Yeah, of course I can sell 9 because 9 is what I have. Let's sell it again. There. And now notice, how many am I left with keyboards? 0 keyboards. So it is working. All my cells are working. My add stock is working. Now equals. Now let us see if equals works. Equal is returning a Boolean value. So you can keep it in a Boolean variable and then print it, or you can do a system out println because it will print true or false. Okay, so what do we want to do? Is it making sense, guys? I'm just kind of testing my methods. That's all I'm doing. I created a product. I printed out its definition. I added 10 to it. I printed its definition. I sold 1. I showed how many left. I sold 1 again, showed how many left. I sold 9 and I showed how many left. That's all I'm doing, just checking. Now, how do I check the Boolean, the equals method? That's the only method that I need to check. So can I do something like this? I'll create another product. Just for the heck of it, out of the blue. And I will call it product 2. But I'll give it the same ID and I'll call it mouse. And even my mouse are expensive, aren't they? I don't know. Haven't bought one in a while. What's the range of mouse? People who buy it? Half of you don't have it. And I can't work without a mouse. I don't know. How much? 50? 50? Yeah. Okay, so let's do 50. From 50 to?
I think I kind of got mine for $30.
Okay, so okay, good. There, it's 50, okay? You can pass an integer, nothing stops you. You can pass an integer into a float variable. You can't pass a double into float because float is smaller box, double is bigger. But I can pass an integer. Now, let's see what happens here. So I created another object of type product. And you know, just because otherwise you forget, I'm going to do this. I'm saying product 1, are you equal to product 2? What am I comparing? I'm comparing their IDs. There is no syntax error here, but what's my logical error? I don't have an answer. I didn't save my answer. It's returning a true or a false, but I don't save it anywhere. So will I see anything? No. So when method calls return values, please remember to assign. Please assign to Boolean. And if you don't do it, then you can't use it. Though I can put it in a system out println because that's the easiest. Let's take a Boolean. Let's call it flag and then call it. And now the flag will have true or false. So I can go system.out.println. You can even do, have you heard of ternary operators? Ternary if, have you heard of ternary if, guys? Okay, this is what it does. Ternary if has, what is it called? Is it called if? No. Oh my God. It's a ternary operator. Okay. It's like an if, but it is ternary. I'm only thinking, can I use it in system out println? I can. Okay, let me show you something just for the heck of it. I'll just show you just because I want to. This is a ternary operator. You take your condition, you put it as the first part. Then you put a semicolon and you want to spit out yes, for example, if it is true. And you want to spit out no if it is false. Now I've kind of gotten my ternary operator, it seems. That's all it does, unless it has to be put in. Oh, the semicolon is there. There is a colon. I forget what it. Oh, you know what? It's a colon and a question mark, I think. I forget my operator. That's really shameful.
So do we have to type this in?
No, wait. Let me get it right first. Okay, there I have it right now. This is called a ternary operator. The ternary does what? It checks this condition. Notice how it has a question mark and a colon. So there are three parts. Therefore, it's called a ternary operator. It checks the condition. If the condition is true, it will say yes. And if the condition is false, it will say no. And how do you know it will? Because remember, this method is returning a true and a false. So the condition must return a true or false. If it is true, it will return yes. It will print yes, otherwise it will print false. In this one, you could have done this, which is really bad, but anyway. Like, this is a short form. If you wanted to say flag is true, I want to print yes. This is a short form of it. I want to print yes. Else I want to print no. This is a short form of it. Control Alt F. There it is. The ternary operator is the short form of if else. So you're checking if the flag is true, print out yes. If the flag is false, print out no. Kind of silly, but this is the ternary operator. Ternary. Three parts. It has three parts. Ternary. That's what it's called. Operator. There. It should give you no in both cases. No, it should give you a yes. See, IDs are same. IDs are same. I'll just run it and then you guys can leave. It should say yes. There it is. Yes. So that's ternary operator. It's called ternary because it has three parts. Condition, compound or simple. What happens if the condition is true? What happens if the condition is false? I'm printing something, but you could use it in an assignment statement. Okay? Okay, do you want me to place this on Blackboard then for you guys today? Everything we've done in class will go on Blackboard. We did product and we did the tester and we did my exception. Okay? Okay, I'll do it in my office because I think they have a class here.